mill.
I think I heard some.
All right, if I
Rochelle, tell them that I'm working on it.
Nasty emoji.
by Janie, a second,
Second.
By Sherry. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over to some of our administration to explain process, and then I will help facilitate those that have signed up to speak.
Mr. President, I apologize for sitting down and talking to the crowd. Normally I stand up, and I think I'll do that. That makes me feel more comfortable. I'm Jason Long. I serve as counsel to the school system from time to time on legal needs, things of that nature. They asked me to be here tonight to help facilitate these public hearings. As we all know, these public hearings tonight relate to proposed closures and proposed mergers. The first hearing tonight is for the closure of Harmon. As we go through the rest of the night, there are other hearings that will occur. As it stands now, again, the proposal before the board and the hearing that will occur here at 5:30 beginning now relates to the closure of Harmon. We've had a number of people who have signed up to register to speak. You folks will be called in order of which you signed up for. The board president has that sheet, so you will call those individuals in that order. And again, I know this sounds, and I hate to say this, but there are time limits. Those time limits are 3 minutes. There's a clock that'll be displayed up here. Again, I hate that that has to happen. I know that you folks have spent years in your schools and your communities, and it sounds offensive that you're given 3 minutes. I recognize and understand that. But that is the process and procedure. As it stands, appropriate notice was provided for tonight's meetings. Appropriate closure binders have been distributed, among other things. To the extent that you folks do speak tonight and you read from a sheet of paper, if you'd like the board members to also have a copy of that, you can provide that to me or someone else. We'll make sure that we get a copy and also provide that to the board members as well. I'll leave that to your all's discretion. Madam President, I think the superintendent probably wants to make a statement, and then we'd move forward with calling the folks in order of registration to address the board as part of the public comment process.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, if I can go ahead and have my slide. Thank you. We're here this evening to discuss part of a larger strategic consolidation plan. This evening, just looking at Harmon K-12 School and North Elementary School, and we'll be looking at transitioning those students to Jennings Randolph, Elkins Middle, and Elkins High School. And our hope is in providing the equal and quality education through consolidation efforts due to the many changing dynamics affecting the county. If we look at, and we've seen this before, but when we're looking at the ongoing trend of our enrollment, and we know that revenues are connected to that, we can see that we have continued to decline swiftly. We're seeing trends that we are going down quicker than we anticipated, and I did highlight here for the board this evening as well as the community based on a previous presentation where COVID and Hope Scholarship has affected us. And it is challenging for us because we have things like Hope Scholarship. Between Hope Scholarship and homeschool, we have roughly 438 students as of August 15th. That's roughly about $3.5 million worth of revenues that we have lost due to Hope Scholarship and homeschooling. This year, we're already seeing the downward trend as of our October 1 count, down to 124 students, which is roughly about another $1 million in impact to our budget going into the FY27. So these are things that we have to consider as we are looking at the impact of the budget as we move forward. I wanted to bring this particular slide back out because there's a lot of misunderstanding or misconceptions about how our budgets work, and if you guys could advance to the next slide, please. Oh, here they are. And with this, I did present this last year a couple of different times, but one of the things I think it's important to recognize here is that 82% of our budget, between 82 and 85% of our budget is typically personnel cost. By the time we add utilities, textbooks, insurance, maintenance, technology, transportation, and child nutrition, we're sitting with 98% of our budget consumed, which indicates that basically we have really only two avenues to really reduce sizable deficit concerns that we're trying to outpace, which is either personnel or facilities or both. Since our last school closure in 2017, we've lost 684 students enrollment. That's roughly equivalent to about just under $5.5 million in revenues. We know that this is part of an ongoing struggle with the funding formula, as a one-size-fits-all does not fit that. What we saw in 2022, if you guys will click that next. They're clicking in the back for me. So there were 5 school closures in West Virginia. In 2023, you saw 9 school closures. 2024, there were 16. And in 2025, there has currently been 5 school closures and currently 16 proposed, including Randolph County's closures. So you can see that we are not alone in the challenges that are being faced as far as across the state. And so we recognize this is a part of the second phase of this work that we want to try to continue to do, is fixing our funding formula, because a one-size-fits-all in large part does not support the needs of the system. Yeah, thank you. One of the things to be aware of and that continues to work against us is if you look at the Harmon decline, 38% since 2013 through 24, we've seen a decline in percentage of enrollment. North Elementary is 29%, and the average for the county was 15.5%. And if you look at, I went ahead and added this year's numbers, current year's numbers, and those current year numbers indicate, again, further decline than what we've seen throughout the 2013 through 2024 years. The proposed closure this evening brings us with a combination of North and Harmon to address our ongoing financial concerns. That would save us roughly $1.678 million to help assist with personnel optimization, operational efficiency, and obviously resource reallocation to try to better meet the needs of our entire district. One of the things that has continued to be a challenge for us is our utilization numbers. And if you can see here, North Elementary is at 53%, Harmon being at 25%. And we have upgrade costs that we would need to be looking at in the future to try to address the ongoing financial concerns related to the maintenance. And one of the things that we have to navigate that a lot of people don't understand is if we are not setting around the recommended 85%, it is a barrier to getting school building authority funding. And so therefore it's important as we continue to try to look at making sure we can maintain our facilities, that we also have the proper utilization to ensure that we can have a viable stream of funding to support the maintenance needs of our district, as we do have a very aging system. So it's important that we have that target in mind. One of the things that we can point out as we are trying to address some of the positives of consolidation and merger is looking at grade level instruction. We could be eliminating all the split grade classrooms throughout the district with this effort. We also would be looking at the potential to add full-time music and visual arts staff, plus new school programs that would benefit Harmon students. High school students can gain access to advanced courses that we currently cannot afford to bring to the table, or specialized programs beyond the core curriculum, including career and technical education. We could also look at expanded supports for staff and students with diverse learning needs. We definitely have lots of concerns and needs and growing needs in that realm that we simply do not currently have the funding to support. So the community impact, obviously, there always going to be community impact when we're talking about school mergers and closures. And so we would be looking at, to try to minimize that impact, looking at modified bus routes with Harmon to try to address and make those options available with virtual learning as an opportunity as well. We recognize North is not necessarily as far as much of a disruption this evening because it's only about 3.1 miles away from the other, but it is something that would allow us to address lots of needs within the district and address the academic opportunities within our schools. So I'm asking the board this evening to look at supporting the two recommendations this evening as part of the overall proposal for closures to help us bring opportunities to consider positions like school counselors, pro officers, school nurses, social workers at each school, art and music programs, administrative and secretarial support at each school, offering additional upper level courses, CTE programs, maker spaces, and other technology that's currently not within our reach because of our financial situations, along with academic coaches, TISs, TSS, media specialists, et cetera. Those opportunities are something that is part of this goal, is to try to advance and strengthen our position so that hopefully at some point we will no longer be 55 in the district, in the state. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Dilley. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and move on to our public comments. Anything else from administration? Okay.
No, I wanted to keep it brief.
All right. So I am just going to go in order, and again, you have 3 minutes to address the board, and then Dr. Dilley and the county board can make notes and address any of your concerns at the end of all those. We cannot have a back and forth debate as well either. And I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name. I'm doing the best I can to read handwriting. And it looks like Heath Matthew. Is that you, sir? Did I say it right? Yep, it's your turn. Keith Matthew.
Can't hear that. Can we hear him on the?
Is the mic on? I'm sorry, Mr. Matthew. We're going to work through some so that we can properly hear you.
Read your thing in the paper. Vote what you want to do. The board's got a lawyer. Now, he brought the high school from Colton up here to build this school. And I read in the paper where Mr. Dilley said it was 31 minutes to Harmon. Was that in a vehicle or a bus?
We'll answer some of those questions at the end, sir. They were going to make notes of those, okay?
It's 31 minutes to Harmon. That's what he said. But the drivers have to make their run, so it'll be about an hour and a half. And I seen in the paper this evening where Barber County said you better leave Pickens alone because they couldn't go to Barber County. And I've been talking to Steve, Mr. Walmsley up at the high school. He said he wanted to bring them down here. But from Point Mountain County line to Mace Mountain, the county line, it'd be 50 minutes to get downhill. That's too long. Or 50 miles, I'm sorry, 50 miles. I don't know how long it'd take them to get here, but it's too long. And I know you got a problem here, but I'm here on behalf of the students. They can't ride or bus that damn long. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Up next, I've got Murray, maybe, I can't read the first name. Dixie Lee? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Dixie Lee Murray. Rebecca Hanlon Vance had prepared a statement to read this evening. Due to her husband having some health issues, she has reached out and asked me to read the following in her absence. Rebecca wanted to speak about her son Jensen. He is 5 years old, in kindergarten, and has autism with very severe sensory processing. He does not handle big changes very well. He takes an excessive amount of time to adjust, resulting in a significant amount of behavioral changes, including aggression. His IEP is already a mile long and still considered a draft due to waiting for his evaluations to be finalized. He also is unable to ride the school bus due to his sensory processing disorder, and I have to drive him each day with accommodations made for his entrance for less sensory input. There are times that I'm not even able to go grocery shopping with him because it is too much after the drive to get to Elkins. Due to the lack of daycare in the area, we are a one-income household. Even though the trip to Harmon is not very far, it still adds up in the amount of gas it takes to go twice a day. I can't even fathom the financial strain we would face to have to go a further distance to get him back and forth to school. Since starting school, he is just recently beginning to have better days and remaining the entire duration of the school without my having to come pick him up early or face a suspension. This is the result of the amazing and caring staff at Harmon who have worked with him tirelessly and effortlessly. Jensen was borderline for being nonverbal, highly aggressive, disruptive, defiant, and the list goes on. And that's a lot for such a little boy. But even at home, he's becoming calmer. He's beginning to talk more. He's finally holding a pencil correctly, starting to write. He's began to start reading. He's sleeping at night. If it weren't for the staff at Harmon, I'm honestly not sure where we would be right now. Considering he was expelled for the same reasons of his diagnosis at 4 years old from a preschool at a different school. They didn't care. They gave up on him 2 weeks into school. Harmon has not given up on him. They support him, encourage him, constantly seek ways to improve his abilities and give him the resources and skills that he needs. And they're able to do it in ways that as a mother, I'm not even able to do. I'm terrified of the regression we may face if Harmon is closed and what degree of mental instability it will cause for my son, not only from a parental perspective, but also a medical perspective for the sake of his health with his diagnosis. It's detrimental that we keep Harmon open. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Sammy Roy.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Dilly. I've spoke here a couple times before. I'd asked some questions the last time I spoke at one of the meetings, and I had 15 or 16 questions. And some of them was, what's the emergency plan that will provide a central location for food, shelter, and supervision for all students? They're crossing these mountains, they're bad. You know, what if the bus wrecks? How are you gonna keep the kids warm? But I never got an answer to these questions. I directed them, and nothing against Mr. Dilly, but I directed them to him. I never received no answer on these. What about a hotel? You know, if the kids have to stay over, what about a hotel or boarding for them? What about kids that has medication that they have to take? How's this medication going to get to the kids? Phone service. Over in our area, across the mountains, you have no phone service. So how is the parents going to be contacted that their kids is not coming home? You know, there's a lot of questions here, a lot of concerns, and I teach safety classes, and I always go through this poem. I'm going to tell you part of it. You know, every decision we make has a consequence, whether it's good or bad. But, you know, I could have saved a life that day. It was a poem. It was, not sure who the author was. If I'd have spoke up, I could have saved a life that day. In this case, maybe it could save an injury, or it could save a life. If one of the school buses happened to wreck, we're putting a lot of kids' lives at danger. But if I would have spoke up and said, hey, we're not going to consolidate the schools, it's too dangerous transporting the kids across these mountains, maybe I could have saved a life that day if I would have spoke up. And there's no child's life worth losing coming across these mountains. I know you got budgets to balance, but there got to be another way somewhere to do this without putting the kids' lives at risk. So I just wanted you to think about that. You know, the decision you make tonight could save a kid's life. And, you know, if we, God forbid, a kid would lose their life coming across them mountains, would you want to live with that the rest of your life? Hey, if I'd have spoke up and said, no, we're not consolidating that school, that wouldn't have happened. But if it would happen, you're the one that's got to live with it the rest of your life. So, you know, that's something, some food for thought. And I thank you for the time to speak here tonight. I belong to the fire department, so I know what these mountains is like. As I've spoke the other times I spoke. It's nasty across them mountains. There's wrecks across that mountain. And I know it's just a matter, it's not if, it's when it's going to happen. So, but thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
Thank you.
Beth Henry Vance is up next. And after Miss Vance is Rex Vance, just so we know who's next.
Thank you. Oh,
Whenever you're ready.
Those handouts are on behalf of the Harmon LSIC, but I'm just speaking as a parent. My name is Beth Henry Vance. I'm the mother of a 7th grader and a 4th grader. One main point I have concerns transportation. The board has not been provided with an accurate picture of bus route times. The proposed bus route time for bus 80A on page 27 in the impact statement shows the overall net increase will be 8 minutes. That bus currently has a stop at the Sully Road intersection at Alpena. For that bus to continue past that location and drive to Elkins Middle School, according to Google Maps, it would add 13 miles or 18 minutes in a car with no additional stops included in that travel time. So how does the information that you were provided with show an increased travel time of only 8 minutes overall? If it's because the bus will stay on the main road only and not travel side roads, number one, that is not feasible for many, if not most, parents and guardians. And number two, that still does not account for the time necessary for stops. The presented estimated times might be accurate for a car, but driving a bus with children on mountainous roads and making multiple stops will always take much longer. I want to point out the increased total amount of time that my children would be on the bus if they were to travel to Elkins Middle School. I drop my children off in the morning and they ride the bus home at night. In the afternoon. The bus ride home, they leave the school at 2:56 and arrive at my driveway at 3:03 p.m. They have approximately 11 minutes of total travel time per day. If Harmon is closed and they would travel by bus, what would the actual one-way total time be for their travel? The proposed total route time for bus 80A shows 52 minutes, but it is likely to be 60 minutes or more overall one way. So they, in all likelihood, would have 2 hours a day or more. That would be life-changing for me and my family. There would be very likely a lot of other concerns with children needing to use the restroom on the bus, the likelihood of increased bullying incidents, not to mention the extreme weather problems, which I've talked about in the past. We have had snow every month from October through May, most school years. The year before last, my bus driver had 10 inches of snow at her house during the first week of May. Harmon had 2 snow days that day, that week, and the rest of the schools in Randolph County did not have snow days. What will happen when an accident and/or poor road conditions cause the main road to be completely closed down, like the prior speaker mentioned? Would they be in a hotel? How would they be fed? How would parents be contacted? This is something that should be in place already because of traveling for sports and things like that, but it would be much more likely if Harmon would be closed and that those kids are on the bus every day. Thank you for your time. I'm over. Thanks.
Thank you. Up next is Rex Vance, and then after Rex is Shasta Arbogast. No, sir. We'll wait for you. You're fine, sir.
Can I say one more thing?
Actually, your time has gone,
All the people I talked to in Pickens and Harmon
Uh-huh.
and Tigers Valley, they want to know why you don't close Elkins High School. You could save $4 million. Bus them to Harmon, bus them to Torrington, bus them to Pickens.
we've got Rex, then Shasta, then Lacey Mullinex, just so that everybody knows who's in the bullpen next, I guess. I can.
First of all, I got something I'd like to give Mr. Kelly. Is he here? Yeah, there he is.
Who's Mr. Kelly?
I tried to get that letter put in the paper, never did get it put in. Go. My name's Rex Vance. I'm from Harmon, born and raised at Whitmer. Not in a hospital, in my home, okay? I've seen it all. I worked for Department of Highways 27 and a half years, and you can't tell me nothing about the roads and how bad they can be. I have 3 kids. My son had two grandchildren. He lives in Virginia. My grandson's 10. We sleep in recliners. I haven't slept in a bed since 2006 because I can't. We talked about the closing of Harmon. He said, Pappy. He called me Pappy. I shouldn't say this, not to offend anyone. He said, that's about the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life, to close Harmon. That's what he told me. 10 years old. Sorry. He was very honest. If we were honest, like kids are, we would have a better outlook on life. I get short-winded, sorry. I just like to speak the truth. Do we know what we're really doing? Do we know what we're doing to the town of Harmon? Whitmer has no stores. You know, they're a ghost town almost. You can ask anyone that lives there. I live there, but they're almost a ghost town. What will happen to Harmon? Has anyone ever went over and looked at the Harmon School inside and out? Excellent condition, probably one of the best kept schools in Randolph County. I'm sorry. Back in 2017, they said we had a roof problem in a room adjacent to the library. It was what they call a film room. It had all that all that moisture going up through, okay? They decided we had to replace every ceiling in the school, and we did it. Where do we get our money from? Who raised the money, people? We did. Exactly. We raised $225,000 or $250,000 and put ceilings in each one of those rooms in Harmon. Who paid for the replacement of the roof at the junior high or the middle school, whatever it is? Who paid for that? I don't know. I just wish that you would just consider, I mean, I know that the tax base is, I had one other question for you. Are the board members bonded? You can answer that question.
Up next, we have Shasta Arbogast.
Hi, I haven't really prepared anything for this evening. I wasn't 100% expecting that I was going to speak, but I would like to point out, I mean, it's obvious. We all see the roads closed signs at KFC every single year. From my understanding, they actually tried to run a full-size bus on some of the runs over in Harmon, and they can't make the turns. So a full-size bus is not even being able to be used. None of our questions have been answered in regards to, you know, what's going to happen if these kids do get stuck. I mean, where has the answers been for any of that? I wouldn't want a kid's life in my hands. I wouldn't want that. But trying to get emotional. I saw a picture this morning of the kids in Harmon praying in front of their school, and it shows that the unity that these kids, these small communities have. And it just makes me sick that we're attacking these rural schools. And it's upsetting, it's infuriating, because this is not the answer. This plan is not the answer. It's not foolproof. There's so many ways for it to fail. There's so many unknowns. The fact that the word waiver can be used just to get around a law is sickening. A waiver on a child's life. Is that not infuriating to everybody? So I asked it yesterday of how that is a possibility that we can do that. It's unreal. I'm hoping that you guys take into consideration Mr. Perrine and the team that they're putting together. I know that he said that he was willing to meet with them, work with them, come up with a plan. Table these closures. Wait. Let a better plan be put together for these children. All these kids are going to lose out on their extracurriculars. I mean, my best friend does the extracurriculars in Harmon. She's building this up for her daughter. So if you get rid of this, I mean, these kids are not going to be, their parents don't want to drive clear to Elkins for that. They don't. It's a long drive to bring your kid to play basketball. It's a long drive to bring your kid to do anything. So these kids are going to suffer not only academically and through the mental health and the struggles of the travel. It's going to ruin everything. So I really hope you take all these things into consideration. I mean, numbers on a board are nothing. It's these kids' lives that really need to be thought about. Waiver, it does not do it for me, and it never will. It's not right. I'm going to try to use all my time. But yes, please table this, and let's give him a chance. Let's see what we got. I mean, there's other plans. Thank you.
Lacey Mullinex is next. After Lacey, it is Jessica Pennington.
Good evening. My name is Lacey Mullinex, and I'm a parent of a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old at Harmon School. You have heard countless reasons why to keep Harmon open, and there is only one reason why to close, and it's money. Last night we found out that we are in budget. As Dr. Dilly states at last night's board meeting, things aren't as bad as we thought they were. Jeannie Newland even questioned whether we would be on the state watch list, and Mr. Brad Smith said, we meet the criteria to get off. There is no reason to close Harmon School. Brad Smith said we would need some cushion next year for the budget. But the only cushion we will need next year if you close Harmon is for my 5-year-old and my 9-year-old riding a bus for 3 hours a day. The state has recommended some school closures, but they have not told you which schools to close. This board has voted in the past to keep Harmon open due to safety issues, and I thank you for that. Those 4 mountains haven't gotten any safer, nor has Elkins gotten any closer to Harmon. The leadership team still does not have a clear plan on how to safely bus those students. If you must, you can choose to close schools that create less impact, like town schools, that would not jeopardize lives and minimize impacts to what truly matters most, the students. Janie Newland, please know what is right for our students at Harmon and vote to keep Harmon open. Ed Daniels, I hope we can count on your support, and I hope we can count on your vote. Dr. Chua, the budget isn't worth the lives of elementary, middle, and high school students. It's just not. Rachel, please reconsider your vote. We need you. It would be amazing to have a unanimous vote tonight to keep Harmon open. Sherry, we need to continue to have your support to keep Harmon a thriving and successful community and school that you know it is. Thank you to each and every one of you. I pray that we have did something to weigh on your heart and that you think about your decision and the lives and the years and years and years that this decision will impact. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Jessica Pennington is next. And then after that, it's Mr. Ross.
I have some information for the board. Harmon's success criteria. Last year, the leadership team asked Harmon School to show improvement in 3 areas: attendance, GSA scores, and iReady benchmark scores. Harmon School showed improvement in all 3. Our current attendance rate is 95.47%, which is a great improvement over last year's attendance rate of 93.4%. In addition, our school attendance is better than the state average and all the potential receiving schools at the end of year 2025. On the 2023-2024 WV summative assessment, did I get that word right, Lacey? Summative, okay. 57% of our students scored partial mastery or above. In 2024-2025, 61% of our students scored at partial mastery or above on their summative assessment, which is a 4% increase. The following 2 pyramids show the iReady benchmark data for 2024-25 in math. The first pyramid shows benchmark 1, and the second shows the end of year benchmark. You can see the large amount of growth in the green. At the beginning of the year, 6% of our students were at grade level, while at the end of the year, 44% of our students were at grade level. This shows a 38% growth. The following 2 pyramids show iReady benchmark data for the 2024-2025 in English. At the beginning of the year, 10% of our students were at grade level, while at the end of the year, 39% of our students were at grade level. This shows a 29% growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mike Ross is next. And then after Mr. Ross, it's John Kelly.
Good evening. I'm Mike Ross from downtown Colton. Been there 87 years. I'm a product of the Randolph County school system. I don't feel intimidated or anything when it comes to dealing with people outside the county or across the state. But I'm here tonight to oppose consolidation in the outlying communities. Maybe an opportunity here in Elkins if you want to do something here, but you not only punish the kids and the parents, but you kill the communities when you do this. Randolph County is an unusual county. It's the largest county in the state, over 1,000 square miles. What fits a small county doesn't necessarily work up here in Randolph County. And the people that can change this whole thing, and I don't think you're utilizing where you ought to be, the state legislature. They make the rules. You got elected officials. There's nobody on the state board that isn't appointed by the governor, and but they have to be confirmed by the Senate. Here's people from Harmon right here tonight. You got the president of the Senate representing Tucker County. Some of them may, in the Harmon area, maybe vote for Randy Smith. He's the number 2 man in the state. Should something happen to Patrick Morrissey, Randy Smith would be the governor of the state of West Virginia. He's right here in your backyard. I don't know, he's not here tonight, I don't think, but probably should be. But you got your senators, they come up, they provide us Hope Scholarship. They're taking money out of the same pot the public school system is. Well, somebody got to put something in. You get more people dipping out of the same pot, somebody got to fill. You're overloading the wagon. And that's something that should be addressed by the association, by the teachers, and by individuals that are affected by it. But in the outlying areas, take Harmon, take Pickens, you can sit in Pickens and get a master's degree. You see universities all over the United States advertise that. You use the virtual learning during the COVID situation. They talk about using some of it here maybe, but killing the communities. You take the school out of the community. There's down at Colton, and I know it's tonight's Harmon night and Pickens night, but same with Pickens. But Colton, we got an adequate building, got good roads, we got new water system, no shortages, new sewer system. Why would you want to put them on a bus? And you can't tell me that 140 students would solve the equation here. And you board members don't have to say we took something from everybody. We need 3 of you to say no. But how many of you read the Intermountain? Not everybody, but article in there this morning, editorial by Brad Johnson. Made a lot of sense. He's comparing the Randolph County Board with Barber County Board. And it's a little easier down there because they only have one high school. But there's Buchanan. Some of you are afraid that some of the remarks by some Department of Education in Charleston, and they're going to charge you with a misdemeanor. I wouldn't worry about that. There's not a magistrate up here that would ever bring it up. But they're Buchanan operating under state order. They don't have a levy. They're getting along real well. They've hired 2 assistant superintendents. They've moved them up. So they got a superintendent plus 2 assistants. They're doing well over there. But
We're at time, Mr. Ross. I'm sorry. We're close to, we're over, so if you can.
okay. I hope you look at that and
Thank you. John Kelly is next. And after Mr. Kelly is Marianne Kelly.
Madam Chair, Dr. Dilley, my name is John Kelly. If it's all right with you, if my wife Mary Lynn could go first, if
that's a, sorry.
Just that
Thank you.
you each get 3 minutes.
When we were saying, I don't want to go after him. He does this for a living. Good evening, board, staff, concerned community. I was told one time that no one cares what you know unless they know why you care. And so I wanted to introduce myself as Mary Lynn Kelly, but I was a Vandeventer. And I started going around the school in Harmon, and I think I'm related to half the teachers. I'm a fourth generation West Virginian, but we only would come back during the summer. I know Mazes, Coopers, and half the people in here. So I am very honored to be here this week for the Dry Fork Festival that is held on the park that was named after my father. So when we were approached by Rex Vance, who I think is a visionary, I just was amazed that he had a vision for the joy that you all would build and spread for this community. It was contagious, and it was an obvious thing to do, and we have been honored to watch it grow in this community, and it just happened to be this week. So we're trying to get up to speed. So there's a couple of things I wanted. Personally, you understand that we are involved with Harmon for 4 generations. So from the 1800s, when the old mill was part of the farm as well. So the rec center and everything there. But personally, as far as that personal connection, I wanted you to understand that. But professionally, I helped start the Challenger Learning Center that you guys have one here. You had one in Wheeling that was extraordinary. And I ran the one in Arizona. So in Arizona, consider me a resource. We've been doing background research, apparently. I served on the State Board of Education, and I know where you are. As I was reading through the documents, and last night we attended the board meeting and met and had some answered questions from some of your team. By the way, you have an extraordinary staff to work with. And so I was really glad to hear that an attorney would be here. In Arizona, we had to have an attorney at every meeting. And when I was reading through this, one of the things that I wanted to bring forward is I don't know that you necessarily have a vote. If I were reviewing it for my board meeting, I would look at this legislation that is the Code 18-2E 5D, and I would not know that you could even vote to close the school, because you can't authentically, and I did some research, thank you, Lacey, I did, some research and talked about the travel times. So legislation would have to be changed before you could even vote to close it. If the waiver was allowed, that would also have to be something that you'd have to escalate to school funding formulas. So I would like for you all, I'm being very protective of the board, that you get clarification, because there's a lot of times that the legislative teams that are in place, they say it's your fault. And legally, you have a shield. You have a shield here to bring forward, and the other one is the short of the bus drivers. There was an incredible, it looked like fun. I considered bus driving yesterday, but if you cannot hire a bus driver, then this is a moot point as well. And it sounds like, first of all, you'd have to have one qualified. It sounds like a very difficult job and a lot of training required. You could do it, but it sounds like the pay is not worth it for somebody to step forward and take that job. So there, in my mind, if I were prepping, and I apologize, I've gone over my time, but that you have 2 legal things to stand behind, that you cannot make this change until those pieces are in place, and you put it back on the legislative team to provide it. And in Arizona, I'll let John talk more about that because he has time left, but the school funding formula, I would be happy to meet with any of you guys to brainstorm what we're trying to do too, because Phoenix has been depleted during COVID, so the inner city schools, people sold their houses so that they could have the economic gain, and they moved out to the suburbs. So we're facing the similar things. You're not alone. I think we ought to get a brainstorming session together if it would help, and we would be happy to do that. It would be our joy. And thank you again for your service.
Thank you. And then now we have John Kelly. And up next is Justin Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Dilly, staff, I'm so pleased to be here. I am so lucky to have been married into the Vandeventer family, so I've had a chance to be a part of the Harmon community for the last 38 or so years. We met originally in Washington, D.C. I'm actually a lobbyist by trade, so this is a lobbying dream to have this kind of community support for something, to be able to go to your legislature, to go to your governor, to go to your federal delegation. You are in such an impossible situation. The task you've been given here to make a fiscal decision with so much human impact, it's just, I feel for you, and I know your staff is doing the best it can under this very difficult position. But in my opinion, there are a couple things. The staff has shared with us some research about the proposed cost savings. I think there are some questions about whether those cost savings will materialize in the way that they've been laid out. Generally, they don't always work out. If you haven't liquidated the building, you're still paying utilities. You still have personnel costs to provide the services to the students. Obviously, we've talked about transportation to the nth degree and all the issues there, but there's a fiscal situation there. There's so many different costs which will continue to be there, but if you don't have the school, you don't have the asset, you don't have the value. And it'll have a tremendous impact. It'll have an impact on the community center that is named after my wife's father, because they serve the same kids that you're serving with the Harmon School. So there is a complementary value associated with the school and the community center, and there's a complementary deficit and injury if that does not continue. Ultimately, this is going to have to be a legislative or a state board decision. As Dr. Dilly said, a one-size-fits-all school finance formula is a one-size-fits-few. And as my wife said, we're having the same set of issues in Arizona, same set of issues across the country. They're being driven by demographics. So these are issues beyond your control, but the solutions are there. There are definitely going to be solutions, and I know the legislature is taking up a variety of different ideas. They've had hearings on this topic. It's a statewide issue. It's a matter of statewide concern. It's not your responsibility to solve the state's problem. It is the state's responsibility to solve the state's problem. You have to take care of your kids. As we were driving out of Harmon, there's a billboard. Just hits you right in the face, says, "Protect our children." And I was thinking about that as we were driving up to the board meeting yesterday through the driving rain. That was a white knuckler for me. I do not want that for your kids. I do not want that for any of these kids. And I think you are on the right track. You're doing the best you can. But I really hope that you will defer this decision to others at the state level who are in a position to make that. And I do have some documents that I'd like to share on the cost impacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next is Justin Murray, and then after Mr. Murray, it's Dana Varner.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. We're friends. Everyone's so uptight. Amen. I feel like I'm in church or something. Anyways, so good evening, Board of Education members. I put together some information and some comments that I want to review tonight. These are comments that have been made over the past 6 months publicly by the Randolph County School leadership, and these are the comments that have been given to you to make a really tough decision in regarding to closing the Harmon School. So before I say anything, I want to remind you that your responsibility is to provide a thorough and efficient education system for all kids of Randolph County. So here we go. This was from a board meeting. These new classroom sizes aren't terrible. I mean, they're not horrible. The total cost savings to close Harmon is $638,000, but moving the kids to a new school will retain a large percentage of it because of our staff. So there's really not as much savings as we anticipated. But the number doesn't include the $100,000 that got voted in by the state legislative. Because of this, we need to reconsider maybe closing more schools because of staffing issues. We need to save $4 million, and our biggest savings is in staffing positions, not building closures. The savings is less per building than I was anticipating, and I'm concerned that the proposal is not aggressive enough. The budget deficit in January was $2 million. In June, it was $3 million, but now the budget's balanced. So in all the conversations I've listened to, I've never heard the following words. What can we do to cut costs so we don't affect our children? Never heard that once. There's never been a conversation about kids in any of the meetings, which shocks me. That's our number one priority. So our public schools, and it's all around the state, it's all around the country, they're losing students. And the number one reason students leave public schools is because of the environment. That means the morale, lack of positivity, support, lack of a healthy school environment, bullying. And I'm concerned if we're not strategic with our decision, we're going to push more kids out of the public schools. And when less kids come to public schools, of course, the Hope Scholarship gives parents a financial incentive to take kids out. But when we take more kids out of public schools, it means less revenue for Randolph County. And that means you're going to be here doing this as a full-time job. So last night at the Board of Education meeting, Dr. Dilley said the following. We're going to facilitate several community meetings in the coming weeks. These meetings will focus on discussing potential school closure options, exploring strategies to improve educational opportunities, and identifying ways to strengthen, and support both our schools and the communities they serve. The goal is to ensure all stakeholders have an opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue about the future of education in Randolph County. Those were your words. So I applaud you for those words. I think that's leadership saying, hey, these are meetings we need to do. Ultimately, from the public meetings about school closure over the last 12 to 16 months, it's clear that there's so many obstacles to overcome. I mean, this is a lot. It really is. So my suggestion this evening, and my time's up, is I would ask that the Board of Education members would table the vote tonight until these meetings have taken place so we can actually talk about solutions where we're not putting children at risk. And we're also being strategic in the future of Randolph County. Do we really just want to keep pushing children out, having them use a Hope Scholarship, having them homeschool and stuff like this? Because that is money out of the Randolph County budget. So remember, last but not least, your responsibility is to provide a thorough and efficient education system for every one of the kids of Randolph County. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Dana Varner is next, and then after Varner is Presley Pennington.
Hi, everything that I had thought about saying has already been said. Other than, our kids wouldn't be able to participate in any activities if they come over here. Not every parent works in Elkins and can be over here to pick up their child, and not all of them have vehicles. Some of the kids live with their grandparents that don't have vehicles. It just needs to be considered. There's got to be a different way. Try doing the ones in Elkins first. See how that works out, instead of making us all come across the mountains. It just doesn't make much sense to me. There's got to be a better way.
Thank you, ma'am. Presley Pennington. And then after Presley, it looks like Talitha Bucher, if I'm saying that right. Okay.
Dr. Dilley and the distinguished board members. My name is Presley Pennington. I attend seventh grade at Harmon School. I was wondering, have you all ever thought about closing some schools down in Elkins and leaving Harmon and Pickens alone? If you close Harmon, the students that play sports aren't going to have the opportunities to play baseball, basketball, over here because there's just going to be so many on the team if they do play. I had a sprained ankle a few weeks ago, and when the bus does wreck going over those bad mountains, it's going to be a lot worse than a sprained ankle. If you do, you're putting a lot of students' lives at risk. And you think that teachers are trying to save their jobs? No, they're trying to save our lives from being shipped over the mountains. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well done, Presley. And I could be saying this name wrong, but Talitha Booker? Talitha? Sorry. And then after that, we have Trish Booker. They look like they're a duo, so. You want to come to the side?
My name is Talitha Booker, and I would like to read something my mom wrote. I would like to talk about an analogy Dr. Dilly shared at the August 5th meeting and modify it to better reflect our reality. It was about a family that had to make some tough decisions due to a spouse losing hours and eventually the job altogether. He used this analogy as a picture for what our county is going through and the tough decisions that we face. I've taken the liberty of naming that family the Randolphs. Now, just like in Dr. Dilly's picture, the Randolphs have a pretty comfortable and prosperous life. Mortgages are paid on time, and all 14 kids have substantial college funds. Now, the Randolphs' neighbors from across the street, named the Levies, have a way more impressive lifestyle. They have a fully paid vacation house, a couple of drivers for their kids, tutors for their kids, in all different subjects, and they have a live-in nanny. It's hard not to admire from across the street. Now, something pretty amazing happens to the Randolphs. Their rich great-uncle Sam passes away. No, it's not amazing that he passed. What's great is that he leaves them a pretty substantial inheritance. The Randolphs soon take advantage of their good fortune. They hire a couple of babysitters, a couple of tutors, and a couple of drivers. It is such a wonderful feeling to free up time for the parents. The family seems to be thriving. Time passes, and the older kids start supporting themselves a little. This means the Randolphs have less mouths to feed. The extra help is something they still enjoy. However, only 4 years down the road, their inheritance from great Uncle Sam is used up. It is time to make some hard decisions. Cut back on spending. The Randolphs decide to let go of the tutors. Letting go of the drivers and babysitters is not an option. They make life so convenient. They start talking about using their youngest child's college fund to pay for the babysitters, little Harmon. Little Harmon is years away from college anyway. Well, a logical move for the Randolphs would be to look back at their lives 4 years ago and see how life was still good then. Life without babysitters and drivers was still good. Randolph County Board, you were balancing your budget with a surplus in the pre-COVID years. Can you take some time to just look at what staffing adjustments you made with your COVID money? Can you just adjust back to basics? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very well done. And now we've got Trish Booker.
Good evening, all. My name is Trish Booker, and I'm here to speak on Harmon closure. I have been doing a lot of listening, reading, watching, and learning. My learning entitled Looking at Data Since the 2018 Fiscal Year and Making Comparisons on Staffing, and I've emailed you all some charts that I made and was going to speak on that, but 3-minute time slot is obviously not much. So I'm trying to figure out how you are here again in less than a year, yet the considerations haven't changed. I understand the complexity of the personnel needed for a building to stay open while having so few students. Enter in Harmon closure as a cost-saving measure, right? Wrong. The proposed closure of Harmon is a sham solution because the savings are not there. I'll quote Mr. Smith's own words from August 19th. Building closure is minimal to your savings. It is in personnel. I have no time for numbers today, but we have similar circumstances as the Pickens LSIC presented yesterday. The proposed closure of Harmon means retention of teachers with seniority, meaning the savings listed on some of Dr. Dilly's charts are quite inflated. You also have to account for the number of students whose parents have sworn not to let their kids cross the mountains daily. Loss in revenue, as you put it, Dr. Dilly, last night. May we please see an attempt at other solutions? At other solutions than this closure, non-solution that you have overplayed? Even one of your own board members invested his time speaking with community members and built a proposal, but we never heard any more about that proposal. May you run the numbers on that? May we see savings calculated if we would get proximity learning into the rural high schools, maybe even all high schools? May we please see the savings in the standing 10-year plan, that is consolidation of city schools. Many presenters have presented study after study on the detriment of closures on small communities and the dangers of long commutes. Let us listen to them. Balancing the budget has been all the buzz that you have completely forgotten the reason this institution exists. The children. Consider the children. The 55th of 55 in a 47th ranking state. Wake up, Randolph County. What drastic measures are you taking? What drastic measures are you implementing to address that? Do you see the reason why parents are taking advantage of their freedom to school choice? You have failed them in the public education arena. You will continue to lose more when your focus is off. Just a little bit more. Board members, my final question to you is this. In whose interest are you making your decision tonight? Is it for self-preservation, to avoid some possible misdemeanor charges? Is it in Dr. Dilly's interest to help him accomplish the one main task he was hired for, the closure of Randolph County schools? Or is it in the children's best interest, the ones for whom the school system exists? Please vote for what is in the children's best interest. Keep Harmon School open. Thank you.
That concludes everyone that has signed up to speak regarding Harmon closure. I'm going to turn it over to the administration. They were taking notes on some of the questions that were presented and give them a chance to answer those.
We recognize the challenges and the concerns related to transportation related to the proposal this evening, but we also recognize that there are very few options that we have as a system to achieve our financial goals, as well as what pieces can be moved around. If folks were listening to the overall proposal, the consolidations of in-town schools are a part of these 3 nights of hearings, and those schools are the only schools that can be consolidated based on the available utilization and facilities. If there would be greater opportunities to consolidate within town schools, that would have already been proposed. What we've proposed in this particular situation is consolidating in-town schools to the fullest ability that we have the ability to do that, and then also trying to build a path forward for the upcoming and continuing decline of students in our system, and to ensure that within 2 to 3 years, when we have to consolidate further, that we are prepared for that day and that reality, and that is what the proposal was after. To answer some of the questions related to personnel and some of the elements there, the challenge is you have to do personnel reductions in combination with building closures, because with each building that you have a requirement to have certain personnel associated with that building, and eventually you run out of room of the personnel that you can cut. And what we have seen over and over again over the past several years is the secondary schools take the large brunt of that particular element. The only way that you could even come close to achieving some of the goals that you were looking at is if your secondary programs were reaching class sizes of 40 or 50, and that is ridiculous to expect any classroom to be that way. So you have to start looking at building consolidations. And again, when you start to look at how to do this within the confines of basically supporting the majority of students, and that is where some of this comes from. And we recognize and understand that this is not ideal in any circumstance, but a lot of this is because some of this wasn't done over the past several years, and I'm not going to point fingers or blame anybody, but the reality is it takes options off the table and availability that we have to now come forward with viable options and available opportunities to do that. One of the things that, yes, there was a few plans brought to me and considerations, including board members. Mr. Daniels, I appreciate the time that you put that together, but ultimately it wasn't economically viable. And I can sit down and show you how it wasn't economically viable, nor did it meet the economic needs that we have, because it wasn't aggressive enough, and it actually would have brought significant cost in relocation efforts in front of us in that regard. So those elements are there. We are looking at personnel cuts at every season. We look at personnel cuts with every annual situation to try to minimize that. But where the impact of students and the benefit of students, I've said this before, the benefit is the personnel and not the building. So I'm always going to choose personnel over a building any day, because that is where our children advance and move forward, is the quality of our staff and the ability to invest in those advancements. And that's some of the things that we want to make sure that we have the capacity and ability to do. Another question that I know was raised was surrounding the bus safety. Well, the reality is these buses travel nearly 3,000 miles, I think it was, that was presented last evening. Every day we see buses traveling across the state. We have plans in place for those emergency situations. In my 24 years of education, I can only recall of one time in multiple districts where students had to stay overnight, and we do have provisions and plans depending on the situation and the circumstances related to that. Those things can be mitigated to the best of our ability. But what we're talking about is also being very proactive when we make weather decisions. We have been very proactive, and I think people can see that there were times decisions were made this year as a proactive stance, and we didn't receive any weather. And we try to continue to do that, always thinking about the safety and well-being of students. This really comes down to the fact that we have few options on the table to try to address those needs and those concerns. And we don't like the idea, but the whole goal is we're going to work to try to minimize the amount of time students are on buses that we can do in the best of the situation that we can have available to us in these tight situations. But we have to also recognize that we already have students in Randolph County that are riding buses for the lengths of times that these folks have been talking about and have been for years. I grew up in Tucker County. I rode the bus for 45 minutes each way every single day. I did that for years, but I was virtually the last kid on the bus. There were students, and they do to this very day ride the bus an hour and a half. I don't like that idea, but when we have few options left on the table to achieve our mandates and our obligations under our financial needs, we have to try to balance all of those particular issues, and that's what this is. There's very limited options based on the governance and the rules and the regulations that we have to follow, and this is some of the struggle that our community has struggled to capture and understand, is the fact that we have to follow all of these particular governance pieces, and they make it difficult to sometimes do things outside of the box. But again, I am open to explore any opportunity that can provide solutions. I always have been, but up to this point, I have not been brought a viable opportunity that would actually generate the level of revenues that we need to and save the number of things without significantly impacting the students in the way that I don't believe is in the best interest of our students. I'm not saying that the situation this evening or the proposal is the absolute best option, but there are, again, we only have about 2 or 3 cards to play. And we have spent multiple meetings this summer trying to discuss those different options and different things, looking at those. And so at this point, I'll just kind of close and make sure. I'm trying to look and see if I have any questions. I don't know, Mr. Alfred, if you want to share anything on your thoughts on the transportation. Or Mr. Smith, if you want to share anything on your thoughts on the financials.
Mr. Smith, can you go over, I know that our budget wasn't as bleak as we thought that it maybe could be, but we kind of talked about it last night, but just so that you can address it again, what that 1 year and a couple of those reasons that we actually made budget that are not great reasons why we made our budget, and if we continue the way we are, what next year would look like.
So the school system's budget is, it's done on a year-by-year basis. We're given a set amount of revenues, and we take the expenditures that we expect to have, and we need to balance those out each year. For the last several years, we have been using carryover that was built in order to balance the budget. So we are not living within the means that of revenue that the state is providing to us. When you balance the budget with carryover, you do work through your year, determining whether or not revenues keep up with the expenditure, or the expenditures could potentially come in lower, and that is what happened last year. Was our local share dollars came in much higher, especially in the last quarter, than anticipated. They were up 600 plus thousand. So of the 2.8 million that we'd set aside, we only dipped into that by a little over 600,000. So our expenses only exceeded revenues by roughly 600,000 and change. So now that we know that figure, the budget that we had put in place for this year was also short. We did not produce a balanced budget to the state. However, since 25 finished well, I'm able to supplement additional carryover into this year's budget. We are now supplementing roughly $3 million into the budget in order to balance. So yes, there were 25 finished well. We do have the roughly 3% that the state asked for us to carry over each year, but when you reduce the roughly $3 million that it's taking to balance this year's budget, we have about $1 million left over.
Which is not the 3% then, is it?
No, the 3% is set aside as well.
Okay.
And then you have the $3 million that is in this year's budget, and then there's roughly $1 million.
Okay.
And also, just a reminder to the board that we've already seen on the October 1 account, the loss of students already equating to that roughly $1 million. So that breaks us back to roughly even in the coming year, and that's part of what we're trying to get in front of. And I think part of what I want also to remind the board is, because our staff has felt this significantly this past year, we've had to say no a lot to achieve that particular outcome, to the detriment of our kids in some ways. Our staff has dealt without a lot of opportunities, and with training, with supplies, with a lot of things, and we did that mainly because we were in initial belief that we would be in a position where we would be in deficit and struggling to make payroll. And so what I want people to be aware of is I think it's definitely in the best interest of our students that our staff have the materials and the opportunities to grow that they deserve. And on our current fiscal situation, apologize to our community. I'm not sure why this thing keeps acting the way it is. But I just think it's important that you recognize our team. And again, last night I did thank the teachers, the staff, and the leadership of the schools and everybody that endured the challenges of this past year doing without. I've lived in counties doing without. And I'll give a great example. When I was a teacher in teaching high school students in in Tucker County. Elkins, I had a little better situation, but in Tucker County, I had between 165 and 180 students per day, depending on the year that I was teaching. I had a $200 a year budget to maintain that. If I didn't have McLean Printing Company donating me paper, I wouldn't have been able to afford paper for that year. I was asked to teach photography classes without photography books or even cameras. So that's the situation our folks were facing this past year, and that's not right. So part of what we have to do is get our situation under control. I'm gonna end there because that's, I could go all day about
Any other
protecting our
questions
staff.
from the board? Any questions from the board for the administration? Okay. If there's nothing else,
Are we able to offer Harmon virtual?
Yes, we can absolutely offer. This is one of the reasons we were wanting to pilot the math program this year. The board provided approval last night to do that, as well as we have a student here in Elkins area that is piloting the full program. And we're excited about that opportunity because that is an option that we can definitely bring to the table for our communities.
If the building were to be closed and we're offering virtual programs to the students, are the students available in the building?
I think
The
there's
Harmon
different,
building?
well, I think it's going to come down to some decisions by the board ultimately. I mean, my hope and thought process would be that we would turn the building over to the community so that that could be a community center. And our thought process was, in order to support this program, depending on participation, the participation numbers would dictate that, but we would be willing to continue to support the technology component of the network there, as well as the providing maybe a facilitator for that, depending on the number of level of staff, so that they could have an in-person, even though there's a live person on the, we want to make sure that we're having somebody locally that would be following up with students, supporting students. And I have even had staff mention interest in the possibility of doing that role if it ever should come to fruition.
Does anybody else have any questions regarding section 2? Looking at the board, do you guys want to, we need to put a sign-up sheet for the next?
We need to take a little short recess for sign-up sheet for the north.
I think we need that too, so.
Absolutely, and that'll be here at the podium, if I'm not mistaken, where it was before, to give an opportunity for folks to speak.
Okay, so it is 6:55 and this board is in a 10-minute recess? Okay, and anybody that would like to sign up to speak for the public proposed north closure and receiving School of Jennings, then you can feel free to sign up. Got, if I can get a motion on section 3, the proposed public hearing on North Elementary closure in the receiving school of Jennings.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
By Phil, who brought us to attention. We've got 3 speakers up. Up first, we have Miss McCrae, and then Joe Biola, and then Shelley Depp. Just so everybody knows who's up next.
I just can't help myself.
You used your outside voice. Rex really did scare me. Hold on one second. Is your mic on?
How about now?
All right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Dilly and members of the board. My name is Brittany McCrae. I'm a kindergarten and first grade teacher at North Elementary School. I've been a teacher in public education for 17 years, and I homeschool my children. At a board meeting earlier this year, Dr. Dilly reported to you that there were currently 438 students in Randolph County who were either homeschooling or using the Hope Scholarship. Sadly, I didn't hear anyone ask why. I'm here tonight to share some of those reasons with you, and I hope that I can articulate these reasons clearly as they are woven together tightly through the 2 points of view that I have as both a homeschool parent and a public educator. It should come as no surprise that at the top of the list of reasons families choose to homeschool or pursue other means of educating their children is poor academic performance. Randolph County now ranks 55th in the state, with many of our schools in the bottom tiers of their subgroups. Mrs. Robinson reported last night that our iReady scores are lower this year than they were last year. Why? There's several reasons. Many teachers aren't teaching grade level content. In an effort to differentiate instruction, teachers are actually watering down the content instead of providing support for the students that they need to reach grade level growth. There's little accountability. Administrators have either chosen not to enforce the standards, not just the grade level content, but code of conduct and professional standards as well, or they felt like they weren't allowed to enforce the standards. Both are unacceptable. Systems are put into place that cater to the lowest performers for both staff and students. Most staff do their jobs well, but administrators are micromanaging everyone instead of directly addressing the individuals who are not meeting the standard in a passive-aggressive attempt to get them to rise to expectations.
Can you give me 1 second? I'm sorry, there's a lot of talking, and I feel like we're not respecting Ms. McCrae right now. If you need to have conversations, please go outside, and you can come back in, but sorry, Ms. McCrae.
That's okay, thank you. When there's no consequence for poor work ethic and no reward for good work ethic, there's no motivation. This punishes the individuals who are producing results and does nothing to improve the habits of those that aren't. The erosion of the nuclear family unit from society, the increase of use in technology in young children and adolescents, and the bureaucratic red tape have resulted in unaddressed behaviors that disrupt the learning environment and destroy the sense of peace and security that teachers work to build in their classrooms. Students shouldn't be flipping desks and punching teachers, and it's not just middle and high school students. Some of the youngest students have the most violent behaviors. When behavior isn't addressed, it lowers the bar for everyone, and the percentage of students who are behaving poorly increases, because if some can get away with it, why can't they all? Somewhere along the way, an everything mindset has been applied to public schools. We're now responsible for it all. We have doctors and dentists in our schools. We're not only responsible for academia, but for the physical, mental, social, and emotional and behavioral needs of students. Society expects us to teach everything from hygiene and toileting to cooking, balancing a checkbook, and filing taxes, which leaves little time for the standards we're actually supposed to be teaching. There are not enough employees to properly staff buildings and to keep all the parts and pieces moving. Vacancies in positions that go unfilled, 8 different teachers a day providing coverage during planning periods, and canceling services such as bus routes are unreliable and have a negative impact on student achievement and community relationships. The current state of our public schools isn't appealing to attract individuals to employment. There are only 6 students at Davis and Elkins College currently completing their teaching residency this year. 3 of them are at North, and only 5 of them plan to teach in West Virginia, none of them in Randolph County. Legislators with little to no experience with children set unrealistic and inappropriate expectations regarding both staff and students. Teachers sit through years of child development classes regarding, and study theories of teaching and learning, only to be forced to teach standards that are not developmentally appropriate and to deliver instruction through a scripted curriculum. Kindergarten is now the old second grade. They take spelling tests beginning at the midterm of the first 9 weeks. We're told to differentiate instruction, then forced to give a standardized test, and critiqued harshly when students don't meet the standard. We ignore years of brain research that has confirmed that screens are detrimental to development and instead require usage of them daily. Public education is a service. Just like in any industry, competition breeds excellence. If public education were producing better results, parents wouldn't need to look for alternative choices to educate their children. Education is a parental responsibility. I can delegate the operation of educating my children, but not the responsibility. My mission field may be public education, but my children's is not. My job is to provide a firm foundation for adulthood, not to turn them loose before the concrete is set. You won't find many people who are more sentimentally attached to North Elementary School than I am. All 5 of my siblings and I attended North Elementary. My parents had children enrolled in North School from 1981 until 2002. The teachers there inspired me to become a teacher myself. I was given the opportunity to be hired and mentored by those same teachers when I moved back home after teaching in Barber County for 5 years. I've taught my nieces and nephews, my neighbors, and my friends' children. We've built a family there. I know that everyone in the county feels the same way about their community schools, but we cannot continue to fund buildings instead of children. We can build new families at new schools. I know that every student will be welcomed with open arms by any staff member in any building in Randolph County, regardless of who used to play sports against who. We cannot change the state aid formula for public schools this year. We can't change the amount of money that they send us to educate students, but we can be responsible stewards of what we've been given. We have control of that much. So please, vote to consolidate schools so that our focus can shift to solving the problems that we do have control of, like the real root causes parents are unrolling their children, and we can begin making improvements. Consolidate schools so that we can have fully staffed buildings and a chance to bring back programs like art and library sciences. And then, instead of planning for future consolidation, let's work to rebuild trust and re-enroll students by providing safe environments and a high-quality education. We cannot continue to do what we've always done and expect different results. It's time for a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCray. Up next, we've got Joe Biola. And then after Joe, we have Michelle Depp.
Testing. Testing.
I think you're good. You might need to move it up a little bit since you're a little taller than Ms. McCray.
About that. Well, my remarks aren't going to be nearly as prepared as Ms. McCray's, but I have been going to North for at least the last 10 years on a couple of adventures. I do the read aloud. Actually, I read for Ms. McCray's class today. And throughout those years, it has seemed to me that North was incredibly disciplined and spirited. And looking back on my own childhood, when I would walk down the halls and there'd be books flying through the air and spitballs on the ceiling, it's refreshing to go to North and just say, man, this is really organized. And then as further evidence of that, Ms. Chris Storick got together a running program also about 10 years ago, and half the eligible students were out there running. Anyway, I hate to see North go. See you.
Thank you. And I've seen Mr. Biola and those students on the trail, and it is heartwarming from one runner to another. So, and a lot of kids look forward to that. Ms. Depp is next.
Good evening. Again, my name is Michelle Depp. I am here as not only an educator for Randolph County Schools, I'm here as a taxpayer and a former parent of some pretty darn amazing kids that graduated from Tigers Valley. I have been to every board meeting or listened into every board meeting for probably the past year and a half. Even when I was out of the country, I listened into the board meeting. Many things have been said. Emotions have been high. I had no intention of talking tonight. I read Brittany's speech before she gave it, and she says a lot of the things that need to be said. We have a very rare window of time right now where you as a board have to make a decision. That window of time, once it closes, is gone. We have no other choices left after that window of time closes if a vote is not had. That window of time could be reopened because that decision could be rescinded in the event that some circumstance changes, some funding situation changes. But if you miss that window now, it's closed and it can't be revisited. It can be revisited if you make the decision, as tough and as painful and as horrible as this is for every one of us, every person in this room, every child, every teacher, every employee of this district. It can be undone if something amazing were to happen. One of the other things that hasn't been pointed out publicly, I don't recall it being said, the money that the state of West Virginia has allocated to two of our schools because of their rural and remoteness is a one-time allocation for this year. There is no guarantee that that funding will be returned to the budget next year. I've had several conversations with our legislators trying to figure out, our local legislators trying to figure out where that money falls, and there is no guarantee that that will be reallocated. So banking on money that's not there, we can't do that. So when those numbers that Brad has presented are seen and everyone sees that amount, that's no guarantee. That $250,000, it's not promised, it's not guaranteed. It could vanish. So when you're making this decision, please keep those things in mind. That money might not be there, and that vote could be rescinded if something were to appear. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes everybody who signed up to speak for North public hearing. Does the administration have anything that they would like to address?
Just a reminder that this is part of the in-town consolidation efforts, the closure of North moving into Jennings Randolph. So this includes that basically the pre-K through fourth grade moving over to there, and then the fifth grade moving into the middle school. But the fifth grade is not on the discussion this evening because that's a separate non-closure hearing requirement that we don't have to do that. So, but just to let people remind them that this is part of that in-town consolidation that we're trying to attempt to do as well.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Anything else for section 3 from the board? And then as far as public hearing for Jennings as a receiving school for Harmon K-12 and North, we'll put another piece of sign-up sheet and give everybody a few minutes there. And Jason's looking at me funny.
No, I was going to say, I think that's on the agenda for 7:30, so we
Okay.
should.
Okay, so we'll do a 10-minute and then, or,
If I'm right on that, was that right?
yes,
7:30?
7:30.
Okay,
So put out the sign-up sheet now and then be back 7:30?
correct.
Okay. All right.
This is for them receiving, Jennings receiving
excuse me, it is now 7:30, and we're gonna start on the public hearing for Jennings, excuse me, I might need readers, Jennings as a receiving school for Harmon and North Elementary. We do have some folks signed up to speak. If I can get a motion on section 4 to get that on the table.
So moved.
By Phil, a second.
Second.
Janie. All right, we've got about 5 people signed up to speak. We've got Miss Lacey Mullinex up first.
Good evening. I'm here speaking on behalf of the LSIC members of Harmon who could not be here. Good evening, Board of Education members, Randolph County schools and staff, and concerned citizens. I'm here to share concerns about the impact statement concerning the closure of Harmon School. Student Transportation Section 3.2.E shows there will be an increase in current transportation times from 13 to 44 minutes. The table shows an increase of only 8 to 25 minutes. They contradict each other, but neither is accurate. The increase in the bus ride will be substantially greater than this. Some of our students will be getting on the bus as early as 5:47 a.m. and have a bus route as long as 1 hour and 23 minutes one way. All our buses will be required to have a waiver because they'll be over the allotted time for elementary, middle, and high school students per West Virginia Code 182E5D. A Harmon student could potentially spend 13 hours and 50 minutes on a school bus per week. Section 3.2.B, facilities. Descriptive Map 1 lists the distance and times from Harmon to the proposed receiving schools. These times represent car travel times in normal weather conditions, not bus travel times, nor inclement weather. It is also important to note that most of the route will have no cell phone service and very limited radio service. The driver will be out of contact with emergency personnel and county office staff for much of this time. On page 29, travel time to neighboring public schools. It is noted that Harmon students may commute approximately 30 miles to Davis Thomas Elementary and 35 miles to Tucker County High School. To my knowledge, there is no official agreement that Harmon students are guaranteed enrollment in the Tucker County School District. Again, there are still errors in the data of the impact statement. According to the West Virginia Board of Education Code 18.5.13a, board members are required to use information provided from the impact statement to substantiate their decision based upon closure. Inaccurate or skewed data would not be a valid source to justify the consolidation of Harmon School. On page 35, the impact document states, Randolph County Schools is prepared to offer virtual learning opportunities with the addition of a facilitator and maintaining an internet access location in the Harmon community. This seems to be an attempt to address the fact that most of the Harmon students have limited access to reliable internet and cellular data. However, there currently is no virtual hub in place. Is this a plan? And Dr. Dilley did speak on that earlier, thank you. The board cannot vote on possibilities of a plan. Do we actually have established plans? What would they look like? Would parents have an opportunity to send their children to the virtual hub in Harmon? Would they be bused? Would we still have to pay for the facilities of Harmon? Are we really saving money in the creation of this new virtual hub? Again, is there a creation of a new salary position to be the facilitator at this hub? Will it be housed at Harmon School? Again, this is too vague of a plan to be included in an impact statement. There is a need for Harmon School to remain the active educational facility for our community. Thank you for your attention and concern to these matters.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Up next is Beth Henry Vance, and after her, it is Chuck Kaufman.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm also sharing this on behalf of Harmon LSIC members who could not be here in time to speak earlier, and this is in the packet of information that I had handed out. I would like to share an overview of the estimated cost of operating Harmon School compared to the projected savings if the school were to close. The impact statement shows the annual cost of Harmon School is approximately $1.6 million. Utilities, $99,872. Personnel, $1.26 million. Maintenance, $23,843. Transportation, $100,826. Other costs, $122,111. When looking at the projected savings of closure, we estimate the actual total to be a negative $41,733.66, meaning closing the school would cost more rather than save money. Here's how that breaks down. Utilities, no savings because the county will still be paying utilities on the building. Personnel, a projected savings of about $99,980 represents the reduction of 2 professional positions and half a service position. It is important to note Harmon school personnel have seniority, which means they would be shifted to other buildings. This results in lower salaried employees being cut instead, so the savings are not as significant as they first appear. Maintenance, no savings, the county still has to maintain the building. Transportation, added expenses, including $2,500 in bus depreciation, $29,131 for a new bus driver's salary, and $10,082.66 in fuel costs. Other costs, no savings because these are following the students. Additionally, the county would lose the $100,000 in Senate Bill 300 funds that we've mentioned earlier. They are provided specifically for Harmon School. So when all of these factors are combined, the district would face a net loss of approximately $41,733.66 if Harmon were to close. In other words, closing Harmon would not result in financial savings. It would actually cost more. These numbers clearly show that keeping Harmon School open is the fiscally responsible decision for our district and community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Up next, we have Chuck Kaufman, and then after Chuck Kaufman is April Kaufman.
Good evening, everyone. I've been to almost all these meetings. I'm either in person or listening. I've been driving bus in this county for 30 years. I've been all over this county. I've been all across these mountains. I understand the concerns of everyone involved. Nobody wants to see their school closed down. Like I said, I've drove for 30 years. I've never, in those 30 years, seen a child seriously injured on a school bus. Have we had buses and ditches with kids on them? Yes. I personally have been in the ditch one time in my career with children on my school bus. No one was hurt, thank the good Lord above. But I have never seen a serious injury in this county. I train our bus drivers. I have for 16 years. I do my best to train our bus operators, our up-and-coming bus operators, our subs, to the best of my ability and the best of their ability to be a sufficient bus operator. And like I said, well, I'll just get off of that. I drive out of North Elementary. I have for most of my career. I like the Montrose area. It's my home area. I grew up out there. And I don't have any issues transporting our children from North Elementary to Jennings Randolph. And I just want to say on behalf of Jennings Randolph staff, I know that they will welcome those children with open arms into their school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Thank you for your service, too. Up next is April Kaufman, and then after April is Allison Cooper.
So I'm kind of speaking on the fly tonight. I had no intention of coming up here and speaking, but I do want to speak on behalf of Jennings Randolph Elementary, our staff. We welcomed Harmon several years ago when they had to come over here with furnace issues. I can't remember what it was at the time. Ceiling. And we welcome that staff and those children with open arms. And if the closures happen again, I just want people to know that we are a caring staff. We love our kids. We put them first in everything we do. We're a showcase school, and we will love them just the same as they are now. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Up next is Allison Cooper.
Hi.
Please keep Harmon open. We've been working really hard on our test scores. We love our community and don't want to deal with extremely long bus rides. I do not think it's the right decision to close us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Allison. Great job. You did good. You did well. All right. That concludes everyone that signed up for this evening for that section. And anything that the board, the administration would like to discuss that was brought up for section 4? Okay.
So what you need to look at in these closure documents as far as the finance goes, what we're doing is we are asked to show the annual current cost of all 5 affected facilities. That's current cost based on FY25. The state also asked me to add in transportation cost, and the easiest way to do that is on a per pupil basis based on the students in each school. I take our total transportation expenses and come up with a per student amount. We also do that with our maintenance salaries. That way we're coming up with a maintenance annual cost in those schools. Then I'm asked to come up with an anticipated annual cost after action. So you will then see the 3 receiving schools. I placed increases in utility cost at every school because there will be more students there. There'll be more flushing of toilets, running of sinks. So you will see that those receiving schools, that the utilities did in fact increase. The same way with maintenance, transportation, and even the other category. Those items were increased at the specific location that was staying open. As far as personnel goes, the total savings was based upon the state average cost for a professional. I do not look at who was most tenured, who was most senior. I use what the Department of Ed provided for our personnel average, which is roughly, with fixed costs, roughly $77,000 for a professional. I don't recall the service personnel, but I think it's in the $50,000 range. So we anticipate, based on the number of students going in each classrooms, if we have 4 third grade across the schools that are closing, and we're going to go to 3 or 2, then we anticipate 2 cuts to personnel. I use the average of $77,000 times 2 to determine how much personnel we anticipate saving. On any of these documents, it has nothing to do with the individual, their years of experience. It is all based upon averages. You will notice in the net cost or savings, the net savings on utilities is between the 2 facilities $147,000. I know my personal water bill at my family runs $150 plus a month. If I am only paying a base charge because my house is empty, I'm probably paying $40 a month. So these facilities are not going to run at the empty facilities, even if we keep them, they're not going to run at the rate that they're running now when they're loaded with kids throughout the year. Again, the personnel number savings, you're going to see that is based upon the number of positions we expect this move to eliminate, both service and professional. A maintenance, that number I think I just netted. As far as transportation, in all of the documents, even the ones not tonight, if anything, I showed a loss in transportation because we do anticipate costs going up. That's why you will see a negative number there. And in this particular, the other category is child nutrition and a lot of other items, textbooks that we know are going to go with the kids. There's not going to be any savings to closing the schools under there. So I showed a net loss of savings of $100,000. That's the $100,000 that we will lose if the school closes. So that is all accounted for. I'm just trying to make sure that people understand the flow of the documents and the mindset behind what's happening here. Because I've heard a lot of different things about average salary being $57,000. So it was easiest to use what the State Department provided as far as an average salary per person for professionals and service. Again, utilities, I anticipated increases, but when you're closing a couple buildings, you're going to see some savings because you're not going to have the lights on in every room every day. And then as far as transportation goes, in all of the documents, the negative is not a loss or a savings. That is anticipated additional costs that we're going to incur. So I just wanted to make it clear that how that flows.
And if I could add a point too, I think, because I've heard it mentioned several times about a more senior person being moved to a different building. The reimbursement related to the certified list is done so that that reimbursement occurs no matter which building they're in. So there is no net savings associated with that. The savings comes when you reduce an actual position from the actual number of staff that we have. So whether it's a more senior or a less senior person really comes back to the certified list being accurate and ensuring. That's why we spend so much time each year ensuring that that is accurate, so that the years of service, their degrees, all of that is subject to being reimbursed within our state funding formula.
The certified list was just submitted today. I haven't had an opportunity to look at the final numbers yet, but again, it's taking into account a teacher with a master's, 45 and 35 years of experience. That's going into our average amount that the state is going to give us for our employees each year. So having those higher dollar employees, we're seeing that a like reimbursement because of the state of the certified list. So it's easiest in all these calculations to use averages.
And yes, and the main reason we're using averages, because as you guys know and have been participating in the personnel seasons over the years, they're very complex. And they're also depending on certification and years of service. So it's difficult to anticipate every single movement that will occur, because there will be people that choose to leave Randolph County. There'll be people that choose to retire. There'll be people that obviously will be facing reductions in force. There'll be a lot of those things happening. So the easiest way for us to put together numbers is that average number. So that is because we recognize that some of those people will be lower on that list and some of them will be higher on that list potentially. So.
Any questions from the board?
I just want to make clear, will there be any construction or permanent changes to Jennings needed for the influx of
Yeah,
more
I did not
students?
put any, in the document, I didn't put anything construction related, because anything, basically what I did, just to try to help people understand, anything that we could do internally with our own maintenance staff, I did not include, because we won't have to. And so basically, we are looking at adding a wall back into one of the spaces that originally had a wall to divide up to create spaces for the art classroom and the music classroom, as well as adding a small bathroom for the additional pre-K classroom that would be going into the location. So there'd be a little bit of money, but it could be done by our own local maintenance staff, and we're prepared to do that. So in the document, I didn't include that because we weren't going to have to pursue SBA funding or anything of that nature to try to do that. We can do that within our own maintenance team and abilities.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? And I feel like I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Up next, we will have the public hearing for Elkins Middle School for receiving Harmon K-12 at 8 o'clock. We'll go ahead and put up the sign-up sheet and resume at 8 o'clock then. LaDonna brought it over. Thank you, though. All right, it is now 8 o'clock. We are now on the public hearing for Elkins Middle School as a receiving school for Harmon K-12. That is section 5 on the agenda. Can I get a motion to get that on the table?
So moved.
By Philip,
Second.
second by Sherry. And we have one person signed up to speak, Ms. Trish Bucher. Ed, do you care to stick that down at the end, please?
Good evening again. This is my last-ditch effort. Initially, this call to a closure vote was based on the context of the budget is not balanced. The state wanted to see progress. Ladies and gentlemen, we have balanced our budget with a 3% surplus. Let us celebrate. We do not need to go any further with these proceedings. Let us now band together with the community. We have Mr. Purine, who has proposed some meetings for the community that we all can come to, band together, and come up with solutions. Let's see what we can accomplish as one. Making any decisions today with inaccurate figures on the impact statement is not necessary. We can take time to review and explore different options. Many have offered their services to approach legislators. Let us use these very negligible resources and see what we can accomplish. It has been emphasized that the declining enrollment is not just a Randolph County problem. It is nationwide. The legislation sees this. Things can change. No need for any rush decisions today. Let us just take our time, talk to our community, band together, and see what we can accomplish. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Any comments from administration at all? Any comments, questions from the board?
I do. Dr. Dilly, if that was tabled or something, what would the state say about our timeline? It wouldn't,
It would not alter our timeline, no.
right, okay.
I've asked that question.
Any other questions from the board at all?
Do you know right
Okay.
offhand how many students will be at middle school from the Harmon if they would come? Okay.
I have it here. Just have to find the right piece of paper. Twenty-six, is that what you're seeing as well? Yeah, just trying to make sure I did my math correct. So 26 students
For the middle school?
for the middle school, yes. That's assuming all of the students that are currently enrolled would be, are going to Elkins Middle School.
Okay. I have another question. Sorry.
It's okay.
How many, of course, I'm not sure, anyone I know is Davy. How many staff would come, because 26 is not a very high number, so would they just flow into the classrooms?
Are you talking about?
Would the staff come?
Well, it would depend a lot on their willingness to come, but most of the, as they've mentioned, most of those are more senior staff, so the majority of that staff would be placed on the transfer list during personnel actions.
Okay.
But it would not be the same, I think, as like when there was, they came over to Jennings and they stayed with their teacher. This would not be the same, this would not be the same
No, it would not be
scenario.
like that, no. Because part of our savings would be the reduction of students.
The reduction of
or,
staff.
Excuse me, reduction of staff, apologize for that misstatement. It would be that is part of your savings there is when you're reducing, because then you're maximizing your classroom sizes to the maximum limits of 25 students.
And there's no way to predict where everybody would go at this point.
No, it's way too early to make
Yeah.
those predictions.
And how many secondary staff are at Harmon?
Secondary meaning middle and high, just.
Would be
for-
middle and high because
Yeah.
there's no way to
They do both,
differentiate
yeah,
them right
just so
now.
that the audience.
With Harmon,
Yeah.
they kind of do everything.
If you count the amount open math position, yes. It'd be 6. We believe it's 6. Off the top of our head,
And
6,
not
we believe.
elementary, just middle school, high school? Six secondary,
That's what we're, yeah, without double checking.
yeah.
And
okay.
one of them's an open, the math position.
Okay.
Right, okay.
Any other questions from the board? Well, they're
Any-
thinking if they, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Gosh, I'm sorry, I just keep running over you.
No, I want you to ask all the questions.
Do you, will there have to be any, like, walls, anything put up at Elkins Middle School?
No, the only thing that would be, that we've proposed action for is the exterior entrance there. There's the 2 classrooms on the right-hand side that, but that's a Safe Schools entrance piece that we're doing. We want to go forward with that, whether we do this consolidation effort or not. So ultimately, it is in the best interest of that program, but it doesn't require us to do that for consolidation purposes or merger purposes.
And would we have to have another principal with
I
that?
think we should be looking at that or considering an additional assistant principal there. That is some of the consideration, as well as some of the elementary schools as they approach larger class size or larger volume in the buildings. I think we should be looking at those additional assistant principals as we did that, and we have in the plans put together some of those proposals and calculations.
Okay. I'm not gonna talk.
You can talk all you want. While the board's thinking if they have any other questions, if there aren't any, we will put the sign-up sheet for the 8:30 for the public hearing for Elkins High School as a receiving school for Harmon K-12. So we'll put that sign-up sheet the same as we have been, and anyone can choose to sign up and speak for that. Any other questions from the board or comments from administration at all? Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will resume again at 8:30. And anybody that would like to sign up may. 30. If I can get a motion for Section 6, public hearing for Elkins High School as a receiving school for Harmon K-12.
So moved.
Sherry? Second? Second. By Janie. All right, and we have two folks signed up to speak. Up first, we have Mr. Seth Blake, and then after that, it looks like Justin Murray.
Good evening. My name is Seth Blake. I currently serve as the Director of Bands, Director of Vocal Ensembles, Assistant Swim Coach, Technology Specialist, and one of the Academic Intervention Specialists here at Elkins High School. I will keep my comments this evening brief. From an extracurricular athletics and academic standpoint, we are ready, willing, and able to receive students at this time, and we are happy to welcome them with open arms should that be your decision this evening. Thank you, guys.
Excuse me. Up next, we have Mr. Murray. Will you pass that down, Ed, please?
All right, so I'm going to take some stuff from Tricia's book. Is that okay? Am I allowed to steal some of your stuff? The first thing is, she said nothing changed since the last vote. The hair on my face is getting whiter. Same thing for Brad. The only one that isn't changing is your hair color and your face, Dr. Dilly. What are you using? I'm jealous. I mean that sincerely. I think yours is getting grayer too, buddy. But so one thing, you shave. What are you doing rolling your eyes? You shave. One thing I want to remind you of is that you can still table the vote. You can still do that. A question. What happens if the waivers aren't approved? What if there's lawsuits that keep those waivers from going through and they're not approved? Have you thought about that? So if you make the decision to close schools, the number one reason kids leave schools is because of environment. And the kids know about the vote tonight. The kids are very anxious about the vote tonight. So if you make that and you use the lady's advice to rescind your vote, you just put those kids through loads of social environment disaster. So that's my question. What if the waivers aren't approved? What do you do? Your decision tonight affects the children. It's not about us in this room. I hate to say, I wish it was. It's not. It's about the kids. What's that going to do to the kids? So, thank you, Trish, for the bounce off there. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Administration. Do you guys have anything that you would? Anybody want to talk about the waiver or anything?
As I understand it, and Superintendent, is there's a waiver request. That waiver request is voted on by the board, but that goes to the State Department kind of in conjunction, when I say State Department, the State Board, along with approval for the closures, for example. Right, so.
And I guess the process, the way I understand it, we can't get the waiver beforehand. It has to be this order of events.
Correct.
If that makes sense.
I don't want to speak for the state, but I assume that that would be their expectation to say, Randolph County Board of Education, you've got tough decisions to make. And if, in fact, you put a waiver in front of them without a closure, you're effectively asking the state board to approve the closure in advance of you all. Again, if I'm on that level, I can't answer it for those folks, but that would be my expectation from a realistic standpoint of what's occurred in all of the years as it relates to State Policy 6204, and the closure process is closure, if it's approved by this board, goes to the state, along with an amendment to change the CEFP, which is more just procedural. But at the end of the day, you are correct in that there is nothing saying that the state will automatically rubber stamp a waiver request. I mean, we can't, speculate as to what those state board members may do.
Right. And at that point, if it doesn't, then we would potentially have to,
Right, I mean, if there's no waiver approval, for example, as it relates to Harmon, then I would assume that there'd be no closure of Harmon. Because absent the waiver, you have the
procedurally, we
transportation
can't do
issue.
that.
Right.
Because that has happened in the past.
Yes, it happened at Pickens.
It happened, you know, previously, I think 2014, when, not this board, but it was proposed to close Pickens, and the state board did not choose to do that. So it has happened. It has happened.
Anything else that the administration would like to address? Questions from the board?
I'm going to come back at you again, Dr. Dilly, for the Elkins High School numbers. How many of the children would be going to Elkins High School?
From Harmon, there's roughly 30 high school students.
30?
Yes.
And there is enough room here?
Yeah, currently, the current enrollment for, let's see, let me find it here. Elkins High School is 723 students. This building was built for roughly about 1,200 students. So there's more than adequate room in this facility for that. When I was a teacher here, we were setting about 1,100, so.
This is kind of a broad question. If this, somebody asked me at break, but if this closure goes through, I know us as a board have heard kind of how that, and it was sort of brought up when I asked about when the roof was an issue and the Harmon kids got brought over, they stayed with their teachers. If these closures occur, then there is going to be a huge riff and transfer season. And really, nobody would, with the volume of RIF and transfers that would occur with our professional and our service, it would be can you explain a little bit that process and the fact that we wouldn't know really where anybody would fall necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there would be almost what would be equivalent to 2 personnel seasons. Would you like to explain the vote? I'm gonna put him on the spot.
And it's more for the general public so that they kind of understand what's happening to their teachers and staff.
I'm trying to think of the best school to use as an option, just
I know,
to
because it's so
kind of,
complex. Hey, take your time.
So I'm going to use North as an example from a personnel standpoint.
Okay.
So North is being recommended for closure, correct?
Mhm.
Those students will go, if it is approved, to where? Jennings. So when the superintendent says there's 2 personnel seasons, if the board votes to approve the closure of North, the code book requires us to do what we call a priority vote. And in our school systems, we got 2 groups of employees, our professional, our classroom teachers, and our service personnel. If the board votes to close North, just using that as an example, if the influx of students, that's the word to use, if the influx of students from North going to Jennings requires that new teachers or additional teachers be put into place, or additional service personnel, all school employees, our classroom teachers, how they're defined, and all of our service personnel would be given a ballot. They literally vote to determine whether or not employees, both service and professional, our service vote for service, professional, they vote to whether or not individuals at the closed school north are given preference for the influx of students that go to Jennings if there's a need for more positions there. So that'll be up to what we call a priority vote of our employees. So if new teachers are needed at Jennings for the influx of students, there will be a vote by our classroom teachers countywide to determine whether or not our folks at North get a first bite at that apple in a seniority order. And seniority order. So the most senior elementary teacher at North, for example, if the priority vote is yes, then that individual would have the first preference to any new created position at Jennings as a result of the influx of students. And it has to be a majority of classroom teachers vote in support of that. Same thing for the service personnel. If I'm a cook at North Elementary and the influx of students is going to require new or additional cooks at Jennings, there will be a priority vote to say if there is a need for more cooks, do we give preference to the cooks at North based upon seniority, the opportunity for the new positions at Jennings? Okay, so that's kind of an initial personnel season, for lack of a better word, but then
And they
when
can
we
vote it
come
up or
into
down,
personnel
like-
season, yeah, you can vote it up or down. And then when we go through personnel season, we still go through personnel season. So that doesn't mean that, you know, if I'm a low senior teacher at North, but I still get a position at Jennings as a result of a priority vote, that doesn't mean I'm automatically going to be safe, because during personnel season, I still got to look at seniority. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then if they do vote to do that priority, would those staff members then have to apply an interview then as the same, or are they just kind of slotted in there if they're certified in that area?
They are given their choice based upon seniority, assuming they're qualified, and there are no interviews for that priority piece.
Okay.
So again, the folks at North, if I'm a teacher, there's a vote to give priority, and there's new positions, I go to the most senior and say, we've got an extra second, third, and fourth, whatever it may be. Do you want one of those?
And then just go down the,
Mm-hmm. But to say, you know, again, I'm not with the numbers, to say that there's going to be enough positions at everyone at North to go to Jennings, I'm going to assume the answer to that is no. But then we
There's
still
gonna
go
be
through
some, but yeah.
yes. So then we still go through personnel season with the hopes of, again, I don't know if it would be huge, because from a personnel standpoint, that is a big piece. And I don't know, the certified list just came and finished, how many you're over on professional, how many you are over on service. And unfortunately, you're always going to be over in a county of this size. You know, it's just the buses that we run and things of that nature. So you're always going to be over, which is tough with no excess levy, but still, you know, they'll be looking at that piece of a personnel portion.
kind of an
Makes sense.
aside, if these closures do go through at some point, I think it'd be good if Mr. Long spent some time explaining that to staff or so that they know exactly what they're voting on, because you might have been teaching or driving a bus
Yeah.
for 30 years, but never had to make a decision how, you know what I mean?
It-
What your educated vote would be.
And I'll give you an example. So I did meet with your administrators on this topic to
That's-
kind of
yeah.
go back and feed to the teachers. But if this were to go forward, yesterday, was yesterday Monday?
Tuesday.
On Monday, on Monday, I appeared in a Zoom call with, you know, teachers in Fayette County, in particular Divide Elementary and Anstead Elementary, both closing and going into Midland to kind of walk them through the process to understand what will come, both of the priority vote and then once the priority vote occurs, you know, how our folks are impacted. But it is kind of two personnel seasons.
Okay.
And this is all based on state code. This is not Randolph County making this process.
Correct.
Doing this process.
18A-4-8F is where the priority vote language is.
So I guess they do give us a little bit of, our staff a little bit of a choice, but kind of a weird choice at that too. Thank you for that difficult explanation.
But no doubt about it, whatever occurs, if it, I will participate in answering any questions your staff have and administrators. I mean, I recognize the impact of those folks.
Yeah, there's gonna be a huge impact there, yeah. Any other questions from the board? Anything from administration? I believe we need to wait until till 9 o'clock, but that might give us some time to review some of these material and have a few minutes of time. So we'll, if it's okay in the consensus of the board, we'll take a small recess until 9. Is that okay for everybody? Yeah. Okay. All right, it is 8:46 and this board is in recess until 9. 9 o'clock. If I can get a motion on Section 7, school closures, policy waivers and amendments, please.
So moved?
Oh, Sherry got it? Janie, you okay for a second? Okay, and Janie will second. We are not voting on these as a slate. We'll go through each one. Is there anything else that the board would like to bring up, discuss, anything before we start? I don't want to prematurely. Is everybody ready for, okay. All right, Section 7A, closure vote for Harmon K-12 school. All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed, and 4 approved the closure of Harmon K-12 school. Up next, B, closure vote for North Elementary School. All those in favor of closing North Elementary School and the superintendent's recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 5-0. Section 6, policy waiver request. All those in favor of the policy waiver request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 5-0. Section D, amendment of the CEFP. All those in favor of the amendment of the CEFP, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 5-0. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Phil, a second?
Second.
By Sherry, and it is now 9:02, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.